This video covers everything we did today in 7th grade math on Thursday, December 9th. Your first step is to open up ClassKick, pause this video, and complete the Do Now on your own. Again, please open up ClassKick, pause this video, and complete the Do Now on your own. I'm going to review one of each type of question. You should have tried them on your own first if you're watching at this point. When I'm looking for 16% of 30, I know that I need to multiply my whole number, which is 30, times my percentage, which is 16, over 100. I'm simply multiplying my whole times my percentage, but I'm converting my percentage into a decimal by dividing it by 100. And so in this case, 16 divided by 100 is equal to 0.16. I'll multiply that times 30, which is equal to 4.8. Now, questions 3 and 4 are a little bit different because this time I know what the part is and I know what the whole is, and I'm calculating the percent. If I'm looking for 12 out of 30, I'll simply divide 12 by 30. That gives me a decimal, and so to convert into a percent, I need to multiply times 100. 12 divided by 30 times 100 is equal to 40. And so my final answer is 40%. This week's foundational learning target is I can calculate the percent, whole, or part when given the other two. We've got that foundational learning target quiz coming up tomorrow, so please make sure that you're studied, and if you have questions, you're sending me an email. In today's class, we're going to work on solving percent increase and percent decrease problems by writing an equation to represent the situation and solving it. Please join me on slide 3 of ClassKick. If you're absent today, we're going to skip 8.1 and go straight to 8.2. 8.2 says money in a particular savings account increases by about 6% after a year. How much money will be in the account after 1 year if the initial amount is $100, $50, $200, $125, X dollars? Well, let's think it through. We need to calculate 6% of each of these values. So I'm going to make a table to help me stay organized. I'm using the straight line tool to help me draw an organized table in ClassKick. In one row of my table, I'm going to write the initial amount of money. In the next row of my table, I'm going to write how much that initial amount increased so that I can see how much my initial amount went up by. In the last row of the table, I am going to write the final amount of money because I have an initial amount I started with, then I have an increase, and then I have the final amount. So let's say, for example, that I have $100. That's the first number they ask us about. If my initial amount is $100, I know that that is increasing by 6%. We know how to find 6% of $100. We simply multiply 100 times 6 over, really bad 6, Ms. Kness. I'm going to try that again. 100 times 6 over 100. This is just our percent formula. We're multiplying our whole number times our percent over 100 to find our part, to find what 6% of 100 is. So 6 over 100 times 100 is equal to 6. So I know that if I start with $100 and I get 6% of interest, I'm earning $6 more. That means that my final amount will be $106 because I have the initial $100 plus the $6 increase. This table asks us about a few other amounts. It wants us to calculate what happens when our initial amount is 50, what happens when our initial amount is 200, what happens when our initial amount is 125, and what happens when our initial amount is X. I'd like you to pause this video and try to complete this table for all of these values. When you're done, we'll go over a few of the columns. Okay, so you should have given this a try on your own. Let's take a look at 50. To find 6% of 50, I'm going to multiply 50 times 6 over 100. 50 times 6 over 100 is equal to 3. And so my final amount is 53. Now, let's talk about x, which is any initial amount of money. To figure out how much I'm increasing x by, I am always multiplying x by 6 over 100. Now remember, 6 over 100 can also be written as a decimal. That decimal, 6 over 100, would be 6 divided by 100, which is equal to 0.06. And you could always check that in a calculator. But we're multiplying 0.06 times x to find out how much we are increasing our initial amount by. This shows us how much interest we made. And then to find the final amount, we're simply adding x plus 0.06x. And that tells us the total. Let's review what just happened. All we did in the final amount column of our table was we said, okay, we're adding the initial amount, just like here it was 100, or here it was 50, here it's x. So we're adding the initial amount to whatever the increase is. We know the increase is always the initial amount times 0.06, so 6, 3, or 0.06x. And when we add those two things together, we end up with the final amount. And that's how we write an equation. Make sure that you have these two rows of your table filled in before moving on, and then join me on slide 4. The value of a new car decreases by about 15% in the first year. How much will the car be worth after 1 year if its initial value was $1,000, $5,000, $5,020, or X dollars? We can set up this situation or this problem in a really similar way to how we did the last one. We know that we have an initial amount. We know that we have a decrease, some amount that the initial is decreasing by. So initial, then we have our decrease, and then we have our new amount. So for example, let's say that I start with $1,000. If I start with $1,000, I know that I am decreasing in value by 15%. And so we already know that to find 15% of $1,000, I'm going to need to multiply times 15 over 100, which means that my decrease, the amount by which my $1,000 went down, is $150. And so if the value of my car decreased by $150, I know that my new amount is just 1,000 minus 150, which is going to be $850. Now, just like in the last question, I want you to go ahead and complete this table for each of the values they ask you about. They ask you about 1,000, 5,000, 5,020, and don't forget about X at the bottom of this table. Please pause this video and complete question 2. At this point, you should have completed question 2 on your own. I am not going to review question 2 in this video, but the class notes will be posted by the middle of the day. So you can take a look at the answer key to see what you got right. If you're absent from class today, we're going to skip 8.3. Instead, I want to talk quickly about the lesson summary. We're going to skip 8.4 as well. We skipped that in class. I'm going to just delete this slide for you so you don't get confused. And let's look at the lesson summary. We can use equations to represent percent increase and percent decrease. For example, if y is 15% more than x, we could say that y is x plus 0.15x. The reason is because y went up or increased by 0.15, which means that we can add on that 15% to the original value. We can also combine like terms, our x's, and write the equation this way or this way. And this is something we're going to practice more in class tomorrow. For now, here are your next steps. Step 1 is please complete the exit ticket. It's on the final slide in ClassKick. Step 2 is to please complete tonight's homework, which is posted in Schoology. As always, please make sure you send me an email if you have any questions.